What's going on, everybody? Gentleman94 here. Welcome back to Ben Builds. Today, guys, we're back on the Hawker Harrier, and I'm super excited to push on and get this thing rolling. Now, today, I wanted to go ahead and do a little bit more work here on the cockpit. Last episode, if you remember, we went ahead and painted the flat black using this Tamiya flat black on the parts that needed to be black. So today, I wanted to go ahead and start in the cockpit, and we're going to paint up and assemble the little bit in there we need to do. Now, last episode, we used our Vallejo light gray. Everything looks good. Today, I want to go ahead and paint the flat black consoles. So we're going to go ahead and push this on, get this thing done. Let's rock and roll. So with the flat black all finished up and drying, I wanted to go ahead and take this opportunity to do a little dry brushing. Now, dry brushing is pretty simple. Everyone probably knows how to do it, but just in case you don't, take a color you want to dry brush, take your brush, dip it in the paint, wipe most of it off, and then just lightly drag it over raised details. You don't want a lot of paint on there. You want a tiny bit to just kind of highlight the raised areas. And this is a really quick way to paint cockpit dials, things like that, or to give something a weathered look. So let's go ahead and dry brush and weather up some of the consoles and the chair. So with the dry brushing all finished up, we're going to turn our attention to the instrument panel. Now, we've already dry brushed this, and we actually toned it down a bit by dry brushing black over top of the dry brush of silver. And now we're going to take our flat black and we're going to paint the instrument panel dial, these faces right here. And I'm not sure exactly what these are. They must be some large computerized display screens, maybe some LCDs or something. So I'm just going to paint over these using this black color and let that dry. That's going to give it a nice dark black finish. Then, once it's dry and cured, we're going to come back and we're going to drop a little future right in the middle of each of those panels. Now, future is self-leveling, and it should nicely coat and create somewhat of a lens look on each of these large display screens. At least that's my hope. We're also going to paint the flight stick. Now, the instructions tell me to use a semi-gloss black for the boot here at the bottom. I'm just going to use flat black. I really don't think it matters because you're not really going to see it. If I needed to be semi-gloss, I could always shoot it with a little bit of gloss coat, I guess. Also, the top of it needs to be flat black, and luckily I've got the flat black already out. So that's the finished product there. Let that dry, and then we'll go ahead and install it in the cockpit tub. Now, the instrument panel looks pretty decent. We're dry, we're ready to go. So I'm going to drop a little bit of future right in the center of this panel, and it should, flow right where I need it to go. And if it ever hangs up and doesn't flow as easily, you could just take your brush and just kind of push it a little bit. Do the same thing on the other side. That's not enough. A little bit more. And there we are. And this is going to give it a really nice look. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this dry, and then we're going to come back and we're going to start assembling the cockpit itself. And this should be really cool because I always like kind of putting it all together and then getting things buttoned up. So this should be really fun. This is how the instrument panel turned out. I think it looks pretty decent. Let's go ahead and work on the cockpit now and get this thing all buttoned up. Here on the cockpit, I've now finished up most of the basic work here. So let's go ahead and give the whole thing a nice wash. I'm going to be using some Testors flat black and Testors rubber. Let's go ahead and get this thing all dirtied up. I think the cockpit turned out decently. I'm happy with the results. I need to do a little bit of work on the chair itself. I want to take off a seam, add the cushions, add some belts. But for right now, it's good enough. So I want to take a little bit of the wash I have left on my brush and just kind of drip it over the sidewalls here on the cockpit. Just enough to get a little bit of a dirty look to it, but not too much. And to be honest, guys, you're really not going to see it. The way the cockpit kind of folds in on itself, you really can't see a whole lot on there. But that's okay. We're going to give it just a little bit of a wash to go ahead and match the rest of it, and I think it should be decent enough. So here it is, inside the cockpit tub. Everything looks good. I like how it looks. It's sufficiently dirty without being overly dirty. The chair, again, I have to do some work on that, but this is a good place to start. Now, let's go ahead and test fit some of the extra parts that go on top of this. So let's go ahead and put this gun sight shroud up here and see how this fits in. Yeah, okay, that fits just fine. Everything looks good, like they line up. Perfect. There's also one other part here on the back. Let me go ahead and grab that. This should fit one large locating pin right there in the back. And let's see, how does this fit? No? All right, there we go. Well, that looks pretty decent, and I like how this looks. Looks good. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and check the seat and make sure the seat fits in there well. Get kind of the whole impression of how this looks. I'm going to go toe first, and down to the heel of the seat. There we go. Nice. Looks good. Again, I want to do a little work on that seat, but I think we're going to be in good position. Moving on, guys, I want to go ahead and work on the front nose cone. I don't know if I need to add any weight to this kit. I know in theory I wouldn't need to, but I'm skeptical of not putting some sort of weight in the front nose. Now, this could be completely useless. I've never built a Harrier before, so I don't know if it needs extra weight up at the front, but I'm going to go ahead and put some BBs in here just to be on the safe side. There's nothing worse than building a model and realizing there's not enough weight to keep it on all of its gears. So seeing as this is an interesting looking airplane with more gears than your standard, I probably don't need this, but screw it, I'm going to do it anyway. So let's clean up the nose, get those BBs in, and put it all together. Now this is just basically standard copper BBs, nothing fancy. Using a little bit of white school glue, we can kind of get it all secured in there, and this should be fine. I'm going to do it on both sides, and they're so light, guys. It's hardly any weight at all, but it's just, in my opinion, enough just to make sure it doesn't fall back on its tail. Who knows? It may not even be necessary, but oh well. Alright, the front nose cone is drying off to the side. I've went ahead and attached everything into the cockpit, so now I wanted to go ahead and test fit this and see how it fits onto the fuselage. There's two locating pins. There's one large locating pin that fits into the center of the fan blade here, and then there's a smaller section towards the bottom of the cockpit tub that has your seam lines. I don't know if this is really going to fit as well as I would like it to, but it seems to fit in there decently enough. So that's not too bad. I'm a little bit concerned that there isn't enough attachment point between the front cockpit area and the rear fuselage, but I think once I get all the little plates in and I get the intake covers in, I think everything will kind of get together and will stay together. When we add that top plate on the back of the cockpit, I think that actually helps quite a bit because it gives it 2 additional contact points there on the fuselage, and I think it's going to hold together decently. I like how it looks. It looks pretty cool. We're going to have to attach the nose cone as well on top of this, and I think that should be decent enough, but I don't want to attach everything right now. But we can dry fit it. So why don't we go ahead and check out and see how this looks with the nose cone. So I think it looks decent. Everything fits together well. We might have to take a little bit of plastic welder to it, but I think for the most part, we're good to go ahead and call it quits for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. This has been just a real quick update. I wanted to get this cockpit put together. We got a lot of work to do left on that seat, though, and then we have to come back next episode and get this thing buttoned up and move on to the wings. So until then, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys are having a blast with your kits. I know I'm having a blast with mine. We'll see you guys back here next time on Ben Builds. Till then, guys, happy building. We'll see you soon.